wife a Jolly Brunch.
So, what's this story that I'm going to enjoy so much then? Said Jim Deacon as he and his boss, Ken Chase, pushed their way into the smoke and lunchtime crowds of the Pig and Whistle. Wait until we're settled, said Ken. Here. He handed Jim a £20 note. Get me a lasagna and chips and a pint of Foster's. I have to go for a piss. Cheers, mate. He turned and made his way in the direction of the gents' toilet. Jim went to the bar, sighing at how Ken's bladder always managed to need emptying the moment they entered the pub, the time when the bar was at its busiest. He wove himself into the crowd and raised Ken's £20 note to a point where the bar staff might notice its subtle twitching and fluttering among the many others that twitched and fluttered before them. A short while later, after Jim had managed to place his order and extricate himself from the crowd, he made his way to where Ken was relaxing at a table by the window. As he approached, Jim noticed that Ken was admiring the contents of a copy of one of the more down-market tabloid newspapers someone had left behind. "Who's on page 3?" said Jim, sitting down opposite the older man and setting 2 pints of Foster's onto the table. "I don't know," said Ken, smiling. "But the birds on pages 9 and 10 aren't too bad." He turned in his seat and held the paper open to reveal a riot of female flesh. "Put it down, Ken," said Jim, embarrassed. "You'll offend someone." Ken gave a short laugh and tossed the paper onto the seat beside him. "Huh, what's so offensive about the female form? It's only girls showing off what God gave them." "Yeah, but it's you showing off what God gave them that I'm worried about," said Jim. "Waving pictures of naked women all over the place? You'll get us barred, you will." "Oh, don't be such a prude," Ken chuckled. He held his pint across the table. "Cheers." Jim clinked glasses and took a sip. Then he said, "So, are you going to tell me this story or what?" "Oh, yeah," said Ken. "Poachers Cottage." "Poachers Cottage? Sounds pretty, I think." "It is," said Ken. "Pretty bloody haunted." "Really?" Ken nodded. "Oh, yeah. As haunted a house as any I've ever heard of." "Blimey," said Jim. "So what's the deal then?" "We're selling it, mate," said Ken. "That's the deal. Ghosts and all." Jim raised his eyebrows. "Well, that should be a challenge." He held up a small imaginary frame. "2-bed cottage with gas-fired central heating and nice views of the surrounding countryside. Reduced for quick sale due to the nightly moaning of the restless dead." Ken smiled. No, but you started out nicely." He broke off as the barmaid came over with 2 plates of food. "Lasagna and chips and a cheddar ploughman's," said the barmaid brightly. Ken looked at the girl with open admiration. "Yeah. Thanks, love. Lasagna's for me." "And I'm the ploughman's." "Thanks," said Jim. The barmaid set the plates down before them. "Here we are then. Enjoy." She smiled and turned back to the bar. Ken stared at her retreating behind. "Would you?" Would I what?" said Jim, picking up his knife and fork. "Her, eh?" Ken nodded after the barmaid. "Would you?" Jim looked at the girl, then back to Ken. "She's a bit young for you, mate." "No, mate. She'd do me nicely, she would." "Tell that to your Maureen." "Oh, like she'd give a monkeys," said Ken, upending the dimpled vinegar bottle and sprinkling liberal quantities all over his food. "Of course she would." "No, mate. She's bar scaring. I tell you, as long as Maureen's got her Smirnoff and her fags, I could be shagging that bird on the living room carpet and she wouldn't notice." Jim watched with his usual thinly veiled horror at Ken's appetite for condiments, The pungent aroma of vinegar arose from the hot chips like CS gas as Ken, now brandishing the salt, began shaking out a small snowstorm over his lunch. Jim pointed to a chip at the edge of the plate. I think you missed one." Ken shook salt onto the chip. "Oh, thanks. Anyway, enough of my festering marriage. I was telling you about Poachers Cottage, wasn't I?" "Yeah," said Jim. "Go on." Ken picked up the ketchup and squeezed out a thick red line over his chips. "Well, it's just come on the market. I've already managed to get some viewers lined up and champing at the bit to see it." "Who's the seller?" "Oh, some bloke. His mum was living there. Yeah, but now it seems she's gone and popped her clogs, so he's getting shot of it." "And what did she die of? Ghosts scare her to death or something, did they?" "Hypothermia," Ken managed to say through a mouthful of food. Jim nodded, understanding. "Well, last winter was a cold one." "Yeah, but she died at the end of May." Jim's knife stalled in spreading a knob of hard butter onto his roll. He looked up. Ken smiled. "Weird, eh?" "Yeah." Jim took a bite of his roll. "So what's the story?" "Well, the old woman had been living in the family home in Fleesham, along with her husband. But after he died, the place suddenly felt too big. You know how it is." "Yeah, and there's a council tax to think of as well." "Exactly. Anyway, she and the son decided to sell it. And with the money they got for it, they were able to buy a flat in Brighton for him, and a nice little cottage just outside of Rainwood Village for the old girl." Jim nodded. "Poachers Cottage." "That's the one. So anyway, the mum moves in, and she loves it. Or at least, she did at first." "Oh, is this the bit where it starts getting spooky?" Ken gestured with his fork at Jim's face. A lump of lasagna quivered with emphasis. "Oh yeah, mate. Very bloody spooky." "Well, go on then." "So, the mum starts complaining that the house is too cold. Freezing, in fact. Of course, the son thinks it's just her old age and tells her to turn the heating up. She says she's done that, and it's still too cold. So, he gets her an electric blanket and a fan heater, but she's still not happy. She reckons the whole house is like a meat locker." "I've heard of that in haunted houses," said Jim. "A cold spot. It's like a focus of ghostly energy. A busy area. Like a hot spot of paranormal activity." "Hot spot? Cold spot? Make your mind up, Jim. Anyway, whatever the case, according to the old dear, the whole house is a bloody cold spot. She tells the son she wants to move. Says the house is haunted. But he says she's just being hysterical." "He sounds like a nice guy," said Jim with a hint of sarcasm. "Has he ever thought about becoming an estate agent?" Ken smiled sourly. "Oh, ha, bloody ha. I take it you like your job." "Sorry, Ken. Couldn't resist it. Anyway, you were saying?" "Yeah," said Ken, taking a sip of lager. "So, the mum decides to hire one of those psychic medium characters to check out the, what do you call it?" Jim shrugged. "Vibes?" "Yeah," said Ken. "Vibes'll do. She gets in a medium to check out the vibes." "And?" "Well, he had a bit of a walk around, touching stuff, feeling for vibes, you know. And, Ken leaned across the table confidentially. "Guess what happened?" Jim slowly forked a wadded leaf of lettuce into his mouth and shook his head. "He said there were troubled spirits there." "Meaning the place was haunted?" Ken nodded. "Very bad vibes." "I see. So what happened then? She told her son, I presume?" "Oh, yeah," said Ken emphatically. "And?" Ken sat back. "Well, at the time he thought it was all a load of bollocks. He told her to stop wasting her money on con men and get herself a cocker spaniel or something. Then, a month later, she was dead." "Blimey," said Jim. "Well, It sounds like an haunted house to me, all right. Yeah, of course. The son was beside himself with grief. He blamed himself. Quite right too, by the sound of it. Yeah, well, once she was dead and the cottage reverted to him, he decided to do a bit of research into the place. And I take it he didn't like what he found? No, he didn't. It's a shame he didn't do that earlier, eh? Yeah, well, there you go. There's nothing quite so fascinating as your own fuck-ups in retrospect. You should get that printed on a plaque and hang it over the office door. Ken frowned. You'll go too far one of these days, sunshine. Oh, come on, Ken. I'm only having a laugh. Yeah, well, you're the only one laughing. Sorry, mate, said Jim, holding up a placating hand.